Welcome everybody to the special council meeting of Tuesday, March the 17th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And going on to item number 3, introduction of late items. We have a number of late items. So the first late item is regarding the RDCK bylaw number 3036, Kootenay Lake West Transit Surface reappointment. You will have gotten that sent to you. It should be available, what did you say?
On the agenda.
On the agenda, so if you wanted to take a look at that. So if I could have a motion to accept that as a late item, moved by Councillor Payne, seconded by Page, seconded by Councillor Lochtenberg. All those in favor? Okay, that gets that on the agenda. Item number 2 is a request for a letter to reinstate the community housing fund to go to the appropriate agencies within the province of British Columbia. Is there a mover? Councillor Payne, seconded by Councillor Tate. All those in favor of having a discussion regarding that, so that will be item number B. And item number C is actually, we have to go in camera for a moment for an item that falls under section 91I of the Local Government Act. So you just have to have good faith and hope on that one for me, please, people. Can I have a mover? Councillor Tate, can I have a seconder? Councillor Payne, all those in favor, and that carries.
I'm not finding.
Yeah, you can't click the.
There's nothing.
Click the Kootenay Lake West Transit Service.
Perfect.
Real.
So we'll just give it a second here.
Not clickable.
It's not clickable, so.
I don't even have it.
Yeah, I don't.
I went
There's
and
email
updated and
No, sure. No.
it's not an email.
Yeah, it looks under number 2, land acknowledgement, and then there's an A on the special
Yeah,
It's
agenda.
not.
But it's, for me, it's not
Adopt
clickable.
agenda, no,
it's not.
So it's a very, there is a RFD.
Is that email?
No,
I thought I attached it, but.
No.
I can email it out to council right now and then we can work on getting it
Perfect.
attached after. How about that?
okay.
Yeah, and it's regarding some business that's gonna take place on Thursday, of which the city of Nelson sort of has a position on, so. I will read the analysis summary, just so we can maybe try to have a discussion about this. The Regional District of Central Kootenay has requested consent from the City of Nelson to adopt bylaw number 3036, Kootenay Lake West Transit Service Establishment Bylaw number 3036, 2025, which proposes a change in the method of cost apportionment to the Kootenay Lake Transfer West Service. At this time, staff plan to meet with RDC staff to address questions that the city has. So we were sent a letter by the RDCK, which we need to sign off and send back to them. And because there was outstanding questions, staff have tried to meet with them to get answered before we sign off on the apportionment, of which will cost the city of Nelson some more money. It's not like they're trying to make us pay for all of transit, but I think is the fact that it was asked to have the opportunity to talk, to understand what the apportionment was, how it changed, because it's changed for some areas considerably within this bylaw that's coming forward. They assured that there would be a meeting before this came to the table, and it's now coming to the table on Thursday. So,
There's the email from Chris.
wow, he comes with bells on. So the recommendation is, and then I'll give you all a chance to look at it there, is that what we're asking for is the following resolution: that council does not provide consent to the Regional District of Central Kootenay adopting the Kootenay Lake West Transit Service Establishment Amendment Bylaw number 3036, 2025 for the purpose of changing the method of appointment for the Kootenay Lake West Transfer Service, and further that council direct staff to provide council's decision in a letter to the RDCK staff identifying this decision. So that basically we would be tasking Councillor Page to go and probably ask for referral of this item on Thursday.
Could we just could we have like 90 seconds to
Yeah,
skim?
now you can go. So now you've heard
Okay.
me natter, go right ahead.
Are we debating that item now? Are we already on that?
Skimming.
Okay. Past agendas.
It's the recommendation, I mean, that's our recommendation, is that we can't. We need to have this meeting that they said that we could have, that
Yeah.
never appeared, and now it's back on the agenda.
No, I got on the horn with Tom last week. Some pressure on.
I think one of the general overarching principles here is that Nelson has its own transit system, and that we participate in this service and have for a number of years, but when they're deciding to spread around the costs that, like, we agreed to part of it, not a sort of full equitable partnership, because Nelson always ends up at the wrong end of the tail of that dog.
Is it, if I'm not mistaken, Keith, this would have been your committee that had some insight into this, a little bit?
We ready?
Oh, I just had yeah, sure.
I don't know, Leslie's
I just have a
still
question.
taking a look.
Yes.
Maybe this is for staff first. So number 10 is a little bit an anomaly because it does service some of the city, like it does perform some city
Well, the 10
route.
is different, because we run the 10 and it's on our AOA.
Oh, it
The
is, so it's
10, they
not,
just pay a portion of that.
okay,
their
okay,
share.
so wouldn't be because of the 10.
Yeah, this is, this is really the Kootenay connector, you know, or Cascar Nelson connector and the Salmo and some other. I'm not 100% certain what all goes into this, but the history was the regional district had a number of these individual transit services that all came out of health connection funding. So when the regional district got into rural transit, it was all funded by health connection funding. And they created all these individual services for, you know, for each sort of area that got some health connection funding. And we were part of, you know, this, it was called, I think, Kootenay Lake West at that time, and that was just the run between Nelson and Castlegar. And that's what we participated in, that was a separate service. So they, which made sense, they wanted to consolidate, you know, all these individual little services into one service. At that time, we said, we're okay with that, but we're only going to pay the cost of the Salmo, the Nelson Castlegar run. So
The 99 we're talking about.
the 99, yeah. So that's why the current agreement had a fixed amount, because we said, if you expand transit out here, we're not gonna pick up our share of, or share of those, that additional cost. We're quite happy to pay our share of the 99. So then they went through and they did a bunch of work, and unfortunately we weren't involved. So I'm not sure why, when they came up with all these different formula, you know, we were not involved in those discussions, and they came up with, you know, And how they wanna allocate that to the rest is, you know, that's their decision. If E and F and others wanna pay based on some formula, you know, that's fine. But we still wanna make sure we're only paying for the 99. And then, you know, that's what we've been trying to get answers over is, you know, show us how we're still just paying for the 99. You know, like, what is the cost of running the 99? Like, you should know that. And unfortunately, we just haven't been able to get that answer, cause they just kinda have one, you know, overall cost, and then they allocate it out in some formula that they, you know, I think worked with consultants with and else, but again, we're, you know, went into this saying we'd pay our portion of the 99, and unfortunately haven't been able to provide us what is the cost of running the 99.
And currently, we're scheduled to pay 20% of transit on top of the already kind of big transit number that we pay for within the city of Nelson. Councillor Page.
So I appreciate this conversation. I know when I saw some emails being sent back and forth last week, it must have been at least 7 days ago at this point, I did call Tom specifically, and he assured me, Joel, that he assured me he would respond to these questions, and that there was just between various projects at the office there that there was a gap. He recognized a gap in that response. I think that's fine and fair. And so obviously, yes, we should withhold consent until we have the answers to those questions, and I'm happy to carry that conversation to the board. I know they have their own timelines, and all that being standing, let's get the answers we need if that's the arrangement that we have, and maybe that is why we weren't part of the allocation conversations. Obviously, the effort there has been to try and find a better formula between service and opportunity for transit options, and make sure that everyone is paying a fair share for this whole system to run effectively. But I think until we get Tom to respond to those questions, we don't know if they do know the costs, certainly know the cost. Now, did they capture that specific differential between how we operate versus not? We'll find out when they respond. If that's been a miss, then there's gonna be some readjustments that have to happen with that formula.
And the other thing that I'm a bit concerned about, and we don't know the numbers behind the budgets either, but it looks like we might have built some reallocation in the budget for 2026 without getting consent to these changes first, so that's problematic if that's what happened.
Mhm.
Because they're taxing different people based on something they haven't got authority to do yet.
Or consent.
So we'll have to ask that, but like when I just look at sort of what the percentage increase in the service was, and it's about 16% if you allocate that out, we're about 30% higher. Casker's about 12% higher, so it feels like they might have already kind of did the budgeting on reallocation without getting consent first, but we might have to check on that.
I think you have to check on it, because I've seen presentations and we certainly weren't being projected at a 30% change in requisition.
Going from 135 to 192,
Yeah.
so.
That's not how we've seen presentations, so we'll have to check.
Yeah, so, I mean, we can pass this, Councilor, but we can pass this motion. And then, you know, you've heard the direction from the table that for Thursday. So I've got Councilor Member, then I've got Councilor Payne.
Just a quick one, if this somehow comes to, we have to pay this, what happens, do we have to readjust the budget then?
Well, I would say that we wouldn't pay it, but
Okay, because it's a chunk of money and, like, where's it come from?
It goes on
Well,
property taxes.
Yeah, it's not our budget, it's their budget,
Okay.
so they will requisition us for that amount.
Oh,
Right now, like, we'll have to clarify because they shouldn't have changed the budget based on an allocation that
Okay,
they
I
haven't
understand.
got authority to
It's a higher tax from the RD. For the
Yeah,
city.
some of it's, you know, like I said, it looks like about 16%. They used quite a bit of surplus in 2025 to keep that rate increase down. So that's, you know, that's the biggest chunk of that. Higher requisition in 26, but if you look at that, the ratio between the participants, like I said, Castlegar seems to have gone up about 12%, we're up 30%. E looks like they're almost double, so it seems like there has to be some reallocation in there.
Yeah, I think there's probably multiple pieces.
Yeah.
Okay.
The allocation-based exercise over the last 2 years has been about taking some of these ad hoc discussions that have resulted in various contributions to this service or that service and come up with a set of principles, and that's what we're seeing in the bylaw change to drive the service delivery. So how often does a bus go by? What are your opportunities to get on that bus? How many stops are in that area for you to travel and do and be serviced in those rural areas? And predominantly a lot of cost shift has gone to some of those rural areas that have not been paying as much. That's the biggest component, but it was, you know, Tom has gone through a number of presentations I've been part of. And if, you know, this wasn't on the version of the agenda I had a couple hours ago, let alone now, so I don't have everything in front of me again. I just know that that body of work has been about baking those principles in so that when it comes to cost calculation, not everything is a little fiefdom discussion around every single bus and people trying to carve out additional
So
services.
let's be honest, Councillor Page, that has been what the discussion has been on, because that discussion has been at the table, not just for the last 2 years that you've been there or 3 years, but it's been there for like the last 12 years and trying to figure out how to do an apportionment around this, and every plan that's come about, how many bus stops do you have? How close is the bus stop to your house? And that has been pushed back hard by all of the regional district directors, particularly between here and Castlegar, saying they're paying for a service that they're not getting because 2 bus stops going down the Slocan Valley shouldn't have to be paid for the amount that was being looked at in the model. So I feel a bit for Dual, their staff person there, because I think he's done this dance around the table several times in terms of how to figure out how to do apportionment, and I see Councillor Lochtenberg nodding his head, knowing that he probably realizes that Tom Dual over at the RDCK has had issues with this, but this is just not satisfactory to think that we're gonna just like rubber stamp this. When we knew that this was coming and we tried to have a meeting and nothing has happened, so it just needs, it needs to be referred
Yeah, of course.
until such time as, yeah.
Is that work though? That is
And
why
we need
this
to know
is
both,
before us,
how did they
because-
get the model, what's the model, and did you already put the model in and tax everybody for it, including the city of Nelson?
Oh, can I move the motion then, and we can keep moving forward?
Sure.
So I'll
Is
move
there
the
a
recommendation.
seconder for the recommendation, then we can have a bit more discussion?
I'll second.
Okay, and then Councillor Tate, you had a question?
I was just curious, in terms of process, so is it correct to say that all of the municipalities have to write a letter saying that they support it? Like Slocan and Castlegar and everybody has to write that letter?
They wrote it for us.
For a participant, yeah.
This is the letter.
Yeah, I saw the letter, so all,
date,
I'm
no.
curious,
Yeah.
do all of
All-
the
if you're a-
participants
Yeah, all the participants
have to sign that,
give consent to change them.
the apportionment?
Yeah.
Gotcha, thank you.
Because right now, they have a bylaw that apportions in a certain way, they wanna
Yes.
change that, so the
Yeah.
participants have to agree to that change.
So the participants have to agree, not their table? Isn't that, like, not the RDC, I don't understand, why would
Well,
we
we would
get a
have to
vote on that
sign it.
bylaw? Yeah.
And then it would go to their table.
Uh-huh.
And then they would agree, like, then they would vote on it.
It's just like a local
So
government act
it's-
thing,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
funny
Yeah.
little,
Yeah.
Like if you go, it's basically you go into an agreement, one party can't just change that agreement. It's an agreement between a number of participants. We all agree that you're gonna tax a certain way. If you wanna change the way that taxes, then you have to go back to the people that had made that original agreement, to say we want to change that.
But that's different than like S226 at rec, cause the 5 of us at that table make the decision. So there's no like table.
Well, but you make that decision, but our decisions, we have no clout on a decision, that our decision goes to the board can veto it. Like when we wanna do anything, we
Right.
make decisions.
Yeah.
The table of 20 can
Yes.
overturn any decision that we bring forward.
But the table of 20 cannot overturn this without the letters, is what I'm hearing.
So in rec.
Yeah.
Right now, it's taxed based on assessment.
Yes,
If they wanted to tax it based on a parcel tax instead of assessment, they'd have to go back to the participants and again get consent to change the way taxation happens. That's basically what they're doing.
do you have any communication with the other municipalities, how they're handling this request for letter consent?
I don't know, I haven't talked to them. Castlegar, I think, is going down, so they're probably supportive. You know, and those are some of the questions, so 99, because the 99 connects at Selkirk versus Castlegar, their apportionment wants to give, Castlegar pays less for that,
Cause it's
That's not gonna stay that way.
right? And you go, well, if I wanna get to Castlegar, I have to take the 99 to Selkirk and then the 98 into Castlegar. If I wanna get to Nelson, I take the 98 to Selkirk and the 99 to Nelson, so what's the
But
difference?
Selkirk is coming into Castlegar. Like, it's not gonna stay, it's about to
Well,
be
now they're
incorporated
talking
into the
about
city.
In their borders?
Moving
Yeah.
the, now they're talking about moving the transit
what is-
exchange, the 99 into Castlegar, right? So now it would change the formula again, it's like,
You're gonna put the 99 right into Castlegar.
there's some talk of, the 99 going to Castlegar instead of
Just to the college.
Cause you're kinda stuck out at the college.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Been there.
So that now, does that change the whole formula again, and we change the bylaw, and like it's, some of it, we have questions.
Yeah, you have questions, and that,
Okay.
and staff have not provided support to provide those answers, and that's why this is perfectly fine.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor, and that carries, so there's some of your marching orders for Thursday, Councillor Page. Next up on the agenda is to have a letter written to reinstate the community housing fund. That was moved by Councillor Payne, and it was seconded. Councillor Payne, do you have anything specific, or in terms of the content, or just the fact that we feel that this was a hastily made decision and that we want it to go to the Ministry of Housing? Is there other parties that you wanna, obviously, we always CC everything that we do here to our MLA locally.
MLA and the Ministry of Housing and the Minister of Finance.
Okay,
I think everything that I have seen, read, and discussed with other members in the housing community as well as other local electeds is this is an extremely short-sighted decision that will have ripples and ramifications throughout our small rural community, and I'm sure the other communities, but it's mainly the rurals that I'm talking about. It'll have ramifications in healthcare, policing, business, tourism. It's not just for not providing a certain number of housing units. This is a vast ripple effect that will further exacerbate the issues of poverty,
and
substance
do you
abuse and
have,
homelessness.
from your meetings last week when you were away, do you have any templates of what other communities are writing for a letter yet?
I do not.
John has one.
Okay,
Great.
John has one.
Great.
just makes
It was
life a little
just
bit easier.
one of those moments of opportunity and discussion.
Councillor Page.
That's it.
So just for, supportive of the letter, I'm sure you guys will write something great with the mayor and everything. And just for awareness, just for the public, we are gonna discuss this at the AKBLG on Friday at our executive. I've been working with Colleen and Mayor Cumberland, Mayor Vicky Brown out of Cumberland, and Gord Clausen from Fort St. John about a resolution, shared language at some of these other area associations, so when it gets to UBCM, it'll be more of a big thing. We are so far focused on all of the public engagement that's gone on, all the efforts local government has made to make these projects available, and are specifically gonna be asking that, you know, some revitalized funding stream is created and some prioritization is made for the projects that were previously submitted, so that that work can be picked up and carried on with some level of continuity, and we'll see what the murmurs are in the next few weeks or so as they try and figure out what they're doing here. And we don't know yet, so I'm
Yeah.
totally supportive of the letter and just wanna let you know that other work is
So a letter of concern, I mean, we just wanna make sure that we're voicing our concerns and knowing full well that area associations and UBCM will probably be, you know, keeping this at the top of the page
Yeah, we're not
for
only
the
ones.
work that they are doing. And I think that we also have to keep in mind, there was, you know, 100 plus applications, and not all 100 projects were bound to be approved anyway, so it wasn't like every project that we were gonna have here was suddenly gonna get approved, I mean, so. In terms of the pot of money, there wasn't enough money there to approve all of the projects that they got submissions for.
Totally. But-
Councillor Lochtenberg.
I might have missed this previously, but obviously I heard about the Nelson Cares project. But Sharon Nelson,
I just happened to read their article in
Yeah,
the Star today and they said
Here's
they're,
continuing, they're
And they're trying to look, they're looking for some other options for funding, so.
They're applying through the Build Canada Homes, but that's not enough money to get the affordable numbers that Nelson Care needed. So Share's going out and looking to stack other funding sources. So they are pretty determined. They went through quite a journey the last time, so they've got experience in hitting a few roadblocks, but.
And so they could charge, so the rents could be a bit
Yeah.
higher there. They're not obligated, like, if you don't have BC Housing funding, then you don't have to play by their rule book, right?
Yeah.
So it could be that, I mean, they still wanna attempt to have some, you know, affordable rents, but they won't have to do the 20, 30, 50 strata concept in terms of number of units and the cost, so they'd have a bit more flexibility there.
but given that this was in a sense, a partnership with the city of Nelson, do they have to come back and consult with us with
No.
changes to the project?
Probably not.
yeah,
The
Yeah.
lease on the
The-
property they do they not?
Yeah,
yeah,
the lease
and it's
was,
based on the CHC funding.
the lease
It
that we
says
agreed to had language.
the
about-
CHC funding in it, but they're still a
CHF.
nonprofit, so they're gonna be the best option that we have going forward, I think.
Yeah, that would make sense.
for
I'm just
affordable rental.
imagining, like, what if they did go to market rents, and would we wanna
No,
weigh
they
in on
have
that,
to.
or we just be like, well, you know what?
They have to come back, cause our letter says that it's
Based on the CHF.
it's
Yeah.
attached to
Back in
CHF.
any
yeah.
event.
Right, so it's tied to the
Yeah.
CHC funding.
I mean, we did give them the, basically for not, right? So I mean, there is some there, but in terms of coming back and having to bring us a different design or anything like
Yeah.
that, no,
Yeah.
right? Like, they know what can go on there and we've sort of approved that.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, thanks.
You got Councillor Page?
Councillor Page.
Yeah, I think, I'm just gonna say it now to preface it into a future conversation that if they're coming back and we're given an opportunity to put something together, I think we need to be really cognizant and dwell on, you know, it may not be affordable today, but you know, if something had been built 10 years ago under that same program, what would that rent look like today or 15 years from now? Like I think there's gonna be still a lot of value if it's non-market in the traditional sense, and it's not gonna be flipping, and it's gonna be stable. That when we're thinking about that permission, that we hold that into account as opposed to trying to get too prescriptive.
And I think that's where their experience comes, because that's their model that they have for the end of Baker Street there,
Yeah, that's the way they're
right?
operating.
That's the way it operates, so they've got that experience.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, so that's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion about a letter to all of the listed? It's like you could send it to every ministry at the,
If you can get it done before Friday, I would love it sent to AKBLG, just so when we're talking about it, it's there.
well, okay, yeah. Are you having a Zoom meeting?
Or meeting and trail, because
Okay.
we have convention and trail
Oh,
in a few
right.
weeks.
And this is
It'll be a
provincial,
labor.
does the provincial pullback, does that have to do with federal funding as well?
I think it's our budget. I think they're still trying to figure out whether they're gonna be able to fit federal funding commitments into a new funding stream with new requirements.
For what? You're talking about?
I think to your question,
I missed this.
CHF, did the CHF fold because the federal funding fell out of it, or was it because the provincial?
It's the provincial.
I think it's solely provincial.
It's the provincial deficit is everything that I've heard.
Again, my understanding was there might have been some federal funding that helped create that fund.
I think you're right. And I think that funding is being repositioned, and so that's why there's an intentional murkiness around what's happened to it, because they haven't said we're done, and they haven't said we're not done. Much like the Fire Smart was out, and now there's a little bit more money coming. I think it's a negotiation piece between the feds and the province, and they haven't gotten to the end of that yet. That's what I'm hearing.
We'll just all wait and see, but I wouldn't hold one's breath,
Yeah,
I guess would be the the recommendation I would have, cause
I
you
would
know, if
wait.
you were to hold your breath, you might go blue.
Too old to hold my breath, Janice.
So anyways, it's been moved and seconded, all those in favor? And that carries. If we could, have a motion to go in camera, please.
We don't
Order.
wanna finish, we've got
I was
staff
gonna-
here, does that?
Quickly do the in camera and then come back out of camera and just keep going through the agenda, cause it was part of the, the late. Well, I've done all the late ones before late.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did.
I did them all out of order, look at that. Okay, we'll leave it to the very end then, fine. Sorry, I got so excited because I went and I renumbered, I've been scribbling all over the page to get all these things in. So we've approved and we've late itemed already, A and B, perfect. Sorry, Sonia, you'll get this all organized, so. So I guess we need to have the adoption of the agenda as amended, that moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by
As so performed.
Councillor Tate. All those in favor, and that carries. We had no previous minutes, we have no
So
requests.
you're saying we have 10 ABC? There were 3
So on
A's,
10, we've
1
already done A, we've actually already done A, B, yeah, and then we'll do C when we get to
C in
10.
camera.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that makes sense, at the end of the days, at the end of the. I just got carried away there about introducing the late items and then we just
Did them.
did them. So exciting, 3.5 years in and we're finally getting like late items and
Yeah,
all
it's
their
actually
weird
good that
things.
you're out of practice for that. Applaud yourselves.
Yeah. Okay, so, 5-year financial plan amendment bylaw. So the 5-year, financial plan bylaw number 3637, 2025 for the years 2025 to 2029 was adopted by council on March 18th, 2025. Since adoption during the year, several unanticipated expenditures arose and were brought to council for information with recommendations from staff that a financial plan amendment would be forthcoming. These items have been compiled and incorporated into the 2025-2029 financial plan amendment. Council passed first 3 readings of the 5-year financial plan amendment on March the 3rd and is now requested to adopt the bylaw. So is there a mover? Moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Lochtenberg. Councillor Woodward.
The 5-year financial plan 2025-2029 amendment bylaw number 3659, 2026 be finally adopted.
Okay, any discussions, councillors? All those in favor and opposed, and that carries. Thank you, everybody. So then, moving on to 7B, 5-year financial plan 2026 to 30 is being presented for council's consideration. The plan includes the revenue expenditures plan for 2026 to 2030 that have been presented to both council and the public. All proposed expenditures, funding sources, and transfers to or between funds must be included in the plan. Both the operating budget and the capital budget information are attached in Schedule A of the bylaw. The 5-year financial plan 2026 to 2030, bylaw number 3660, 2026 is presented for first 3 readings. Recommendation 1 moved by Councillor Lochtenberg, seconded by Councillor Woodward. Councillor Lochtenberg.
The 5-year financial plan 2026-2030, bylaw number 3660, 2026 be introduced and read for a first and second time by title only.
Okay, Okay, so we spent December,
I can give some,
February.
yeah, I got 11 budget meetings. October 2025 to February 2026. And this is sort of the second to last step in the whole process, the final one being a tax rate bylaw, which we can't do until we get those regional district requisitions, but we'll get this piece, this is what's on the table now for your consideration. It consolidates hydro, water, sewer, resource recovery, capital, operating budgets all into one financial plan in that structure that you will see on those quarterly updates and when we do our financial statements, which we're currently having audited now for 2025. So this is the format that is largely sort of classifications are dictated by the provincial reporting standards, but so it's at a very high level, so it's sometimes a bit challenging to kind of follow through, but it reflects all the decisions we've made in those 11 meetings, the water and sewer increases and the taxation increase. It's all sort of outlined here in the RFD. If you have any questions, I can answer them, but.
Councillor Payne.
So I don't remember this being presented before, but you can probably, there was a lot. In the water capital maintenance, $44,000 for contingency for water chlorination improvements.
Yeah,
So what I'm trying to understand is why we have a contingency, because I think of contingency as reserves. Like you take anything you run into that you need your rainy day money for, you take it from reserves and then reallocate it to go forward. So help me understand how this is different. And have we seen this before?
yeah, no, you haven't. And so the wording's a little bit funny and I apologize. Our water utility supervisor has a budget for doing these miscellaneous capital pieces. I think he had 70,000 allocated for 2026. We're already into March here. He has, I think one of the biggest components is, and I can't remember which municipality gifted us their chlorination.
I feel like it's down on the lower mainland.
Yeah, so they have we lost our chlorination producing, I don't know what you call it, machine, what is that, unit? During 2025, and he's been gifted a unit. These things are a couple $100,000. So to use as a backup, we got
So
for
when you
free.
say we lost it, it stopped working.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So we had to buy.
We're still looking.
Fell in and it dissolved.
It sounds like you
Sorry.
can't load it on a
Yeah.
pickup and take it.
Right. So it stopped working. We had to buy chlorine for a couple of months while they got the thing up and running, got the parts. He was looking for an alternative in case this were to happen again, and he happened to find one that was basically free. But in order to install it, he would have to use some of this capital maintenance budget that we'd had allocated to him, which would take him, to half of that budget already used by the end of March. So we still have a financial plan that hasn't been adopted yet, so I said, well, we can try and, put a little bit more in here, should you need it. He may not need it. It's again, one of these capital maintenance budgets that when things come up from time to time, things break down in an old, we're not planned, he can use some of those funds. So I'm just trying to give him a little bit of ability to do what he projected he would need to do, and he didn't sort of anticipate getting this machine for free, which I think is a great deal if we can get this and not have to go down and buy chlorine for months when this thing's offline. Hopefully it doesn't happen again, but when you only have one, I think there's that risk, right?
So then
So
just,
then this capital
Yep.
investment would reduce operational costs of buying the chlorine.
Correct. If we ever had that unit fail on us again, we could continue to produce our own chlorine and not have to ship it from the coast during that period. So this gives us some resiliency during that type of incident
just-
happening again.
yeah, from an accounting point of view, we're taking this out of
Yeah.
capital instead of maintenance.
Yeah.
As you know, the utility budgets are self-sustaining, so if we don't spend that capital, then the reserve will just be higher. So there's no fee.
So it has no impact
There's
on
no impact
the
on
tax
fees
rate,
or
the,
nothing, no. Just means we're you're
No
saying,
deficit surplus, what would you
No,
do?
100% of any surplus goes into the capital reserve,
Yeah.
which is used for capital, so if we're saying, you know, here's some more capital budget, it's already being funded from the same funding source, so it's self-contained, it doesn't impact anything outside of it.
So wouldn't the opposite work? Like, that's what I'm not understanding, why it,
Yeah,
he
the
he
reserve
hasn't
could
spent the
open.
money.
Yes.
That department hasn't spent that money.
Correct.
They haven't spent the 70,000, they know they're
Right.
gonna spend this 44, so that
Yes.
leaves them the whatever.
Yep.
And which they may need over the course of the next 9 months, in which case they could either come back to us. I guess I
They
just
could.
don't understand why
Yep.
we even need to add it, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
It
they-
seems like,
We could have this conversation in September, I guess, and I could say, hey, we need a financial plan amendment to give them some more budget. I suppose we're talking about the budget now and we
Okay.
haven't passed it, I figured now's the
I
time
just
to-
wondered if I'd missed something, so it's just not a full understanding of how the shells get.
It's really an accounting exercise.
And one of the challenges with, you know, especially with water and wastewater, we do those budgets so early
Yeah.
that now we're 3 months into 2026 and so much changes in that period of time, but this is the one piece that
We know,
we know of, yeah.
Okay,
saving us doing this in the future.
Yeah.
I think basically.
That is always just in general, it's always a bit of a trick because the fact that the 2026 budget isn't approved until the year is almost half over. And one of the things that I've heard a lot over the years is even when trying to do procurement, when you're not too sure whether or not at the very last moment, somebody might say, oh yeah, it's looking like 8, and all of a sudden we go to 0, and you told the procurement staff in January they could buy. It's that whole dicey thing, because we don't have to have this done until the 15th of May, and like I say, the year is almost half over, so there always is that idea of maybe you just say, okay, we're gonna let these projects happen, and that if there's still a big budget swing, we can then accumulate for it in other areas or manifestations, but I mean, it is always, it is always tricky, because when you start buying basically the same time that many other people are buying, then you're probably buying at a premium when you can't do procurement until halfway through the year, or you're trying to find the contractors and they're already fully booked out when you're trying to find them later in the.
Yeah, that's why we want, get this financial plan
yeah,
passed.
that's why we're doing the amendment now, right?
Yeah.
So that we
True,
can
that
go
was
ahead
one
with
of
some
the
of those
reasons for
things, okay.
So, okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any other questions? Councillor Payne?
Alright, this, I don't know, the tax multipliers will be reviewed and set by council annually. I don't remember looking at the tax multipliers, when did we do that?
We haven't brought you a tax rate
Tax
bylaw
rate
yet,
bylaw.
but if you
Okay,
have.
I thought because it was in here, this was part of what we were getting, so, that will
Normally,
become-
we try to keep that ratio of the 75-25 pretty consistent, so the multiplier does float a little bit depending on if you had more growth in the residential sector than the business class sector, that can happen. So it's never gonna be exact, but we've consistently kind of been around that 2.26 as a factor from residential taxes, like the business pays 2.26
but that will be
times.
coming with the bylaw then.
I would bring that with the bylaw. I mean, at that time, I've already got a
Yeah.
tax rate bylaw, so if you wanted some major adjustments to that, saying, hey, we want it to go to 3 or drop to 1, then probably better to have that conversation earlier.
As I said, I just didn't remember doing it this year, I remember having a discussion about it last year.
We did make some adjustments with the CSO when we brought that in, wanted that to be funded just with the business. That was last year, but this year, we don't have anything like that, so.
Okay, and just, I alluded to this earlier, but just under fees and charges, it says the city will review fees and charges annually to ensure they keep pace with changes. So if that's not the case, and I don't see how you can maintain that pace,
Yeah.
you might wanna change this,
Well, I
can you
think we're
change
saying
that, or?
Review them,
Mhm.
doesn't mean we're gonna change them every year.
Okay, I thought with the special events, it sounded like they hadn't been reviewed for like
Yeah.
20 years or something.
Yeah. And there are small amounts. and-
Yeah, I think
Renewed.
and yes, the city manager, we look at everything every year and what, you know, with lease rates, is there gonna be an increase? It's really just you're prioritizing what you have the capability to adjust in any given year, and
So
so
they're
you look
not
at
on
things.
a regular schedule then?
There's no regular schedule that we've put together.
So obviously, water and sewer and those fees,
Those
Pretty
are-
significant.
Those are your biggest rates.
yeah, so when we get into special events permits that generate 20,000 a year, then we're probably, you're not looking at those necessarily every year. We do have a quick discussion around them. Should we, those ones, like, you don't like, I think you mentioned, you don't wanna change it 20 cents every year, so we kinda look at those smaller ones, maybe hopefully we're doing them at least every 3 or 4 years, but
Parking
Some slip.
probably every 5 years,
Yeah.
look at
That's,
that.
I'm just trying to think in
Yeah.
my mind, like, maybe I'll just make a list for myself of what the fees and charges are, and I'll just send it over to you, and you can tell me what I missed. Cause I'm doing like parking, special events, and now we've got business licenses and,
And yeah, by the time you're getting down to business license and especially special event, you're getting sort of, definitely down to
and the
those smaller
development
dollar
services
amounts.
charges and
Yep.
just a lot of things like that.
there's 4 pages of
Rentals.
Rentals, yeah, that's a big one.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I'm good now. There's one other thing I don't understand despite all my research, but I know we can't run at a deficit, but and the reason I'm having a barrier around this is when I was in sales, I used to sell to government. So March was like this madhouse of they wanted anything we had in the warehouse because they had to spend their money. So we don't have that because we have all of these carryovers to the next year. So I don't know if that's a change in government in general or,
that's the provincial government policy.
yeah,
whereas
okay.
we're
But
not-
it doesn't apply to municipal governments,
I-
because it looks like some money's got moved this way and then that way and then,
Definitely with capital projects, we look at them and say, you haven't completed this project yet, what do we need to roll forward to next year? So there's no feeling of like, oh, I need to do a bunch of work on City Hall so I can spend this money. We don't operate that way. And operating, we're not saying to folks like, oh, you didn't do as much professional development this year, so clearly you don't need that budget, we won't give it to you next year. Like, we meet with every department and have those conversations, so.
Yeah, so
so
you
you
have to
roll
think,
that money
you have to
forward as
remember,
well?
no, it just goes into
Just
surplus.
It goes into surplus.
Okay.
Yeah.
You just have to remember the provincial government has a bunch of departments, right?
Yeah.
So it's the departments that are spending their money,
Mhm.
right? Whereas we're, that just doesn't make sense for us. Why
Yeah.
would we
Yeah.
encourage our departments to spend wastefully?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, and I guess my other experience of that is being in organizations that have been grant funded, where they have to have their money spent, and so they're buying
Yeah.
crazy things, and it's
It's
not,
We don't have to do that. We
Thank you.
spend wisely.
very glad, cause I didn't really like that. Okay,
No, it makes no sense.
doesn't make any
Doesn't
sense.
feel good when you're working for them.
Or
It's
if
not
you-
using your resources wisely, let's
Yeah.
put it that
Or
way.
you make savings and you go, we're gonna save up so we can, the colleges are a good example, right? We wanna save up to spend over here and they go, wow, too bad.
You're not allowed to
Right.
save, no.
Yeah, like, it just, it's bad policy, I think.
Okay. Got another one?
Pretty good
I
there.
like any kind of accounting question, it's fun.
Was that an accounting question?
I don't know,
So.
Are you
looking around
getting
the
new
room?
shoes?
Looking around the room, the one that usually asks the really tricky accounting questions doesn't have her hands up, so. The resolution number 1 has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, opposed, and that carries.
Move number 2.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Second.
Counselor Tate, thank you.
That the 5-year financial plan 2026-2030 bylaw number 3660 2026 be read a third time by title only.
So that's been moved and seconded. I think we've had a good conversation. Questions have been asked. And so if all those in favor?
Wait, wasn't that
That was
be
never-
finally adopted? Aren't we
No,
on be
second.
finally?
No.
Second reading.
Which one are you
You
on?
can't be
We're
finally
on to the
adopted.
third, we've done one and two,
Hopefully that didn't say that.
now we moved the second to third
Sorry,
reading.
AP, I'm with you, apologies.
Okay, so we still haven't passed it. So all those in favor? And opposed? Okay, I saw two hands that didn't go up. Do either of those people want to have their opposition recorded?
Sorry, point of order, I think we're muddled. So for
Yeah,
the
I'm just
5-year
trying to stay.
financial plan amendment, we're on,
Number two.
we're on finally adopted. I think you're in the wrong agenda item.
We're not doing the amendment, right?
We're not
We've
doing the
done
amendment,
that.
we've already done the amendment.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm muddled,
The
apologies.
We're on the
amendment's
5-year
done.
financial plan, 7B, we've passed one.
26, the third.
I'm on B, I'm with
So
you.
we're on the 5-year financial plan, we've introduced and passed now for the first and second time by title only. And now we are trying to do recommendation number 2,
Okay. With
you
you.
read for a third time, it was moved, it was seconded. I see 3 hands up in favor,
Sorry.
4 hands up in favor, okay.
Well, if you don't put
Is
your
there
hand
anybody
up, you're
opposed?
in favor.
You're in, I know, I'm
Okay,
It's true.
in.
and no one's opposed, okay, perfect. Moving on.
Okay, zoning.
Okay,
You vote.
8A. One, N.
Sorry.
Just before we move on, can I just ask a quick clarifying point, or maybe I can email tomorrow, but I find it, I would love it, I'll make a request. I would love it if there were page numbers with dates at the bottom. If you could put a footer as a date, so that when I'm seeing all of these different versions,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at the numbers and I'm going, did that number come before that one or after that one? And how did we get to that number? And then I look back at my notes and I'm just not sure which one I want. So if there's any possibility of just throwing down a footer page and a footer date, that would really help my system of trying to be organized, and I hopefully won't ask you questions that you've already explained before.
Don't mind the date.
8 for sure, that'd be great. Okay, we are on to item number 8, recommendations from staff. Zoning bylaw, this is some additional information coming from staff. The summary is at the March 3rd, 2026 council meeting, council passed first and second reading of a new zoning bylaw and directed staff to schedule a public hearing. At that meeting, there was discussion regarding part 710 that has regulations that address cash in lieu of fronting parking, and part 323 that has regulations for waste, recycling, and compost facilities for new residential of less than 20 dwelling units. Staff recommend maintaining the current cash in lieu parking provisions and direct staff to undertake a broader review as part of the 2027 work plan. Staff also recommend an additional category for waste, recycling, and compost facilities for residential developments between 1 and 4 dwelling units. So we have our senior planner, Ken Bordeaux, with us here this evening. And perhaps you want to start by just giving a little summary before we put the first recommendation on the table.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, as you had mentioned, prior to the public hearing next week, we wanted to provide council with some additional information since there was quite a bit of discussion at the March 3rd council meeting. So staff have reviewed cash in lieu of parking programs in other municipalities, and we generally found that there isn't one sort of single standard or way of structuring these programs. Each municipality structures their program based on their local development needs, so residential development or downtown revitalization or whatever it may be. As well, the dollar amounts that we found vary considerably. So you have the city of Kelowna that could be up to $33,000 per stall, depending on where you are in Kelowna. And it could be as little as $4,000 if you look at Lake Cowichan. So as the mayor had mentioned, we are recommending that we leave the cash in lieu regulation in the draft zoning bylaw as is, and then direct staff to do a broader review in 2027. Regarding the garbage and recycling regulations, staff had a look back at our notes, and I guess we had inadvertently forgot to include between 1 and 4 dwelling units. So we're recommending that council direct staff to include a regulation and a minimum of 1.1 square meters of space per dwelling unit, which works out to be about 3 feet by 4 foot area. And this is just something that we've observed over the years. Typically when we're reviewing development, often developers forget to make sure there's sufficient space either inside a garage or inside an accessory building. So we're looking to add those regulations so we can ensure that new development is compliant with the wildlife attractant bylaw and making sure that people are planning for this sort of thing rather than just simply choosing to throw their bins, I guess, at the side of the house or in the backyard or whatever it might be.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded, Councillor Page.
The council directs staff to include a review of the city's cash in lieu parking provision in the 2027 work plan to report back to council with options for consideration.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Wait, you know what? Go on to do 2.
You want me to do 2 as well?
You guys wanna do them separately? Sorry.
Okay.
Or I don't care.
Are we okay? That council directs staff to include a separate category in part 323 of the draft zoning bylaw for waste, recycling and compost facilities for new residential developments between 1 and 4 dwelling units as outlined in the report.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Councillor Lockenberg, you had a question?
So the rationale for putting this in the 2027 work plan is just the fact that there's quite a variety of variation in the amounts, is that it?
There is, if staff or if council wants us to look at this in depth, it would involve a lot of reaching out to municipalities, finding out exactly what the details of their program are. We basically just looked at what was available on the website because we have the time crunch we had to get the RFD in. So we would be looking in 2027 to do a more deep dive into this. As well, we also wanted to give a heads up to the development community as well. As I'm sure council knows, development planning can take a couple of years before they submit their building permit application. So we want to be able to give a heads up to the development community and say a review is going to be happening and there may be changes to the bylaw. So we thought if we put in the 2027 work plan, that would give us sufficient time to inform the development community.
It's fair, that makes sense. An alternate approach would be just to go for the $30,000 per stall and see how it lands and do that work plan anyways, because why
The
not?
10 didn't land very well.
We were high at,
But why not? Like or just do it, just do something that's,
well, I think there's, one could be, change the cash amount. The other thing I asked Development Service to look at is, we want off-street parking in these things, so to me, it should be based on what we want to achieve. We want to have off-street parking as opposed to a cash amount. And I think we can set regulations that require that. I see there, someone said they don't allow it in residential areas or things like that. So I think there's some other tools other than just the amount. We're not looking to get cash for parking. We would prefer parking be created on the development. It would be those, we could create a policy where it's those exceptional places where you would accept this, or secondary suites where we are trying to encourage secondary suites in existing homes and there's, difficult. So I think there's a bunch of things there, so it's not just a fee based thing.
And just to add to that, what I had mentioned regarding informing the development community, this would also apply to someone, for example, who has an existing secondary suite or illegal secondary suite and
Non-conforming.
Non-conforming, you could use that term as well. And they could be a bylaw complaint could be put in. They come in to get their permits, and maybe it's a heritage house, there isn't room for that extra parking stall, and we could be potentially giving them a bill for $30,000 instead of $3,000 to deal with this issue. So, we don't want to be in a situation where we either stick them with that bill or they decide to decommission the suite and then kick out the renter. So we thought keep it as it is, and we can look at it in the 2027 work plan and see what these other municipalities are doing.
Yeah, okay, thank you, great.
And I think he shared some information on which ones we've seen, and I think almost all of them were secondary suites at this stage.
Yeah.
So this isn't a big issue right now, it's really catering to the secondary suites at this time anyway.
Councillor Payne, and then Councillor Tate.
I think it's important to reframe this, not that we want off-street parking. I think that's a byproduct of we want smooth traffic flow and housing. So I just wanna get my head around that those two things are not mutually exclusive. Active transportation and transit are part of the solution around that. So if we're thinking longer term, then using up the amount of space that a parking spot, off-street parking takes, if I had to sacrifice housing for that, it's a very clear choice for me. So I just think if we're looking, I wanna make sure we have that, 2050 OCP view of what are our long-term goals. We want traffic and municipal machinery to be able to move smoothly through the streets of our community, not actually stated in either our OCP or our green plan. It's more focused on the walkability of the city, at least that's the terminology that I found when I looked for both of those terms. Walkability was the one that came up. So I just think that that's important when we think about this. I don't want to discourage anyone and from adding that density that we know is so critical to meeting our long-term housing needs by having this as a barrier and $30,000 as a barrier. That'd stop a project in its track.
Mhm.
So I just wanna make sure that our goal is not the fact that we want off-street parking, but we want higher density and smooth traffic flow.
We don't want on-street parking. How about that?
Well, we if we go to self-driving cars, then maybe we do want an on-street parking on every block, right? Like I think there's things that we're not conceiving of that if we do it in 2027, then we might come out with different ideas. But I think you need to, begin with the end in mind. We want higher density housing and we want smooth traffic flow. I think that can be reached in a lot of different ways and it's not just off-street parking. So that's all I want to say.
Councillor Wood.
Councilor Tate, did you?
No, Tate, sorry.
Sorry, I think you
Go
were.
ahead.
Okay. I think when I was looking at this, I was thinking about, as our city is growing and densifying, like whatever how we're designing this, I think needs to be a flexible tool because as we densify and there's more and more people living here and there's more and more people wanting to park, you could see how our streets would just fill up with cars as densification happens if we don't have these tools that we can work with developers to
If we don't have transit, if we don't
figure
have
out,
transportation.
but you could see how all of a sudden it would just be like all of our side streets are just full of people's cars that live in this and the density that's been built.
I see a different
So-
world, Jesse.
So I just think that actually this is a really smart way of going about it in a delicate way because we want development, but we really don't want people just paying a fee and parking on the street because then we will have no parking. So I'm totally in favor of this. And I think for me, it's like 10, 15 years down the road. What's our town look like? And will there be any room for people to park that don't live here because everyone's parked on the street? So I think, encouraging, where it can be, encouraging people to build a parking spot on the lot is really, really important. And I know where you're coming from, Councillor Payne, but you know, it may or may not end up like that with self-driving cars and that kind of stuff. It may or may not. It may just be kind of like it is now, but even more congested because we have density and people parking on the street. So
Okay.
I think
So
tools are
councillors,
important.
I just want to remind you, councillors,
Yeah.
don't debate the motion, not each other,
Sorry,
a little bit.
yes.
I mean, you can state your view in
That's my view.
opposition,
That's my view.
but not between each other. Councillor Tate.
Oh, thanks very much. Because this will go on the work plan in 2027, and that may be a different table here, I think riffing off of both you folks, what we need to identify is what is the goal and what flexibility do we need to achieve that goal. Some of the new builds, the new builds in Nelson are selling for $644 a square foot or $908 a square foot, and these are multi-unit buildings. So we also have to consider what that looks like as, is it an incentive or a disincentive if you're adding more square footage to the sale of that unit by building it out bigger and not having parking. So while I understand the idea and the notion of housing, not parking as a goal, I think we have to keep in mind there's some nuance there of what can you build in 161 square feet and what does that look like? So just considering what is the goal of the policy and what flexibility do we need to incorporate when we get there. It's a bylaw, I guess.
Okay, so I kind of started this dog's breakfast there 2 weeks ago, so I'm fine with this moving forward because I hear a number of arguments, and so you know, I don't, when I look at what's been, and again, we can look back, and looking back isn't necessarily what's gonna happen looking forward, because when I look back, yes, some people wanted to put in suites, that's great, we know that those are probably gonna be rentals. What I see going forward, which was my question last week, and I did it out of order, or explained why I wasn't voting in favor, is new builds on raw land. And then the cost that this whole government plan of having to now build, that you can build up to 4 on a R1 lot, all it did was increase the value of the land, which means that whatever's built on top of it is not gonna be affordable or a rental, right? Necessarily. I mean, maybe somebody will build a fourplex and rent it, but for the most part, it's about building it and selling it. And a house that's $600,000, that's 600 square feet, is probably still out of the range for a majority of people that live in Nelson. So there's a number of things there. So I appreciate that I have to take some responsibility because we needed this to come back because we're having the public meeting next week. And I want to thank staff for being so gracious as to give us some options here. And I'm fine with 2027, but it is about trying to figure out what is the end game, and the past here for sure for me doesn't predicate what the future may look like in terms of housing, and in particular affordable housing, rentals, which we don't have enough of. And so I'm glad 2027 sounds like a reasonable amount of time to come to something that I think is gonna have to be fairly flexible. Nelson has never been one size fits all, because anybody that looks out the window knows we're on a hillside. So that plan, that Kelowna plan, or that Phoenix urban sprawl plan doesn't fit the city of Nelson. So I think I'm quite happy with what you've come back with, and I think that, you know, if I've only got 1 to 4 units, the 4x6 size recycling area is a lot better than the 10x10, because that was the parking spot. Anyhow. So, Councillor Page.
You said something there that I piqued my interest. Have you seen reporting or some of your municipal finance stuff that has indicated that land values have increased since the introduction of the small scale
Yes,
by right?
yes, because you can build more on it.
You're like, that's mapping out, there's reporting on that now.
Yeah.
If you have that, I'd love
Yeah,
to see,
I
I'd love to see an article that where I could dig into that a little bit more, that doesn't, sounds right, I just wanna.
But even the like price per square foot in a single family home is much lower than the price per square foot in a multi-unit building.
I hear you on that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then that tracks with her.
Yeah, I'd love to see,
Theory.
yeah, I just wanna
Yeah.
dig into the report a little bit more, wherever that's coming from. Thanks.
Okay, well, I'm trying to make myself a note here, and I'm supposed to be chairing the
Don't.
organization
just-
as we go
yeah,
along.
just-
Anyways, so we have moved and seconded, the 1 and 2 together. Any further discussion on either of those, bits? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Thank you for getting those arms reaching so high.
Super high.
I don't wanna be accused of being against.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
Thanks, Dan.
And we will see you next Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Yes.
Can you just
See you then.
shut that door for us, too, please?
Pardon me?
Like when I don't know this. I can't wait to find out.
So 31 municipalities in the Lower Mainland have gone to 0 parking within their transit, within 0.8 kilometers of transit. So that might be something we can think about too. I know you're all excited about that idea, but you know, we do have some parcels downtown.
I would go for something like that if we
Would
could
be
have like.
much more
handlebars.
attractive
Or
to developers if they
The
didn't have to
SkyTrain
pay
right
that.
into town.
Yeah, lots of,
We have a transit exchange.
No, SkyTrain.
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 a bus
Yeah,
in
it might
10
actually be a
minutes.
SkyTrain, you might come in your drone and just be
Okay,
driving.
what is, I don't know what I missed, I don't know what the
On our
camera is,
select.
there's no.
Oh, no, so anyways, so I just wanna say again,
Kept saying.
is that you guys just, like, you guys are, like, just letting me just free for all up here these days, you're not keeping me on track. I never did council, reports, I don't know, like, it's getting late now.
No, it's
Are-
good, it's good,
I
it's
have
good.
4 weeks worth,
We can
it's
save that
okay.
for next, we can do double next month.
Do we still have to go in camera?
Yes, we do, but I mean, so while we're still in open, when this is when we would
Oh,
give our
we're in
reports.
open?
Yeah,
But
sure.
I'm just
I thought
wondering,
we-
I mean, some of these people have some fairly long reports because they've been out traveling, so I don't know if we wanna hear like from Councillor Payne and Councillor Page, who probably have the biggest reports to give. And then we move on, or you'd like to just see us
All
take
good.
it.
Next month is fine.
I don't have any, I'm good.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go.
No, are we doing?
Well, I mean, that's
Well,
what
this
I'm
is,
trying to
this
say.
is, yeah, no, you wanted to do this and it makes perfect sense, I've got my notes here, so.
I think if it was on council business, we should hear it. If it was
100%.
like
Yeah.
related to council
Yeah,
business.
if
I
it's
mean,
not
and
now,
then
we,
this
I'm
is
happy to do
council-
it next time, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
fresher
no,
now.
do the council business, cause we do need to do the council business, and so the things that you've been away at, Leslie, if you could just maybe not talk about.
No,
You
I'm
know,
just,
this
that's
is
all I've
streamlined.
got.
Okay.
My list is from
Okay.
the last 6 weeks, it's all council,
Okay.
but I'll just talk about one thing.
Okay, Councillor Page.
Okay, so I was able to attend the FCM board meeting in St. John's a couple weeks ago, so I'll start with that. I've got a few different like organizational pieces. I think the biggest takeaways from being part of the rural forum and the various committees connected with FCM is the FCM going into the federal advocacy for this year is looking for infrastructure challenges and programs to highlight with the federal government. And so I have made a commitment with Rebecca and I'll draft something for staff, and staff can bring extra perspectives that Nelson touches from wastewater to fire to housing, a number of different pieces that would be able to convey to the federal government the necessity of supporting those programs. And so they are anticipating that we will provide them with a list of some of those challenges, and we've talked about, I could think of everything from the civic arena to the PACE programming to the federal environmental requirements around waste, that just areas where we're being pushed to spend money and where we can try and find some additional flexibility as a rural municipalities so that we can face some of these things in over a longer period to help, because we're in an austerity environment, and so how are we gonna deal with this broad municipal infrastructure debt? So that's one piece. I've got a note here for that. I've got some drafting, so hold my feet to the fire come like Friday. Federal investments for defense and technical training and associated efforts around civil forces is a really big priority for this federal government. So certainly was raising the issue of finding opportunities to leverage the domestic seats at our post-secondary colleges and Selkirk specifically, so that when we're trying to elevate this trades training and these other opportunities, that as we shift this 5% of GDP into our defense funding, how can we leverage our existing knowledge infrastructure to do that, and specifically in rural. So that was another thing that's been highlighted, and the FCM staff are working on some talking points that go along with that. There's nothing that's concrete there, but that was part of a conversation that we had. At committee level for social economic development, or for equity and inclusion, which is what I'm sitting on, we have elevated the online duty of care resolution. Staff there are working, your man and Mohammed are working on that specifically to make it a very FCM-esque resolution, because there's pieces around that. So that will be circling back and may be seen by the April board meeting. And then I'm just gonna shift into and then of course, St. John's was beautiful. It was a great opportunity to connect in that community, with
Some screech.
But I heard he didn't kiss the
I
cod.
made a choice not to screech.
Yeah,
I
he
will,
didn't kiss the cod.
one day I'll come back and do it properly. A lot of people did it, but when people are at a conference are all going through a line to do a thing, I felt there was like an opportunity to, maybe a summer, finish my hitchhiking journey from Montreal to St. John's and then do the screech. So I've saved that little piece of Canadiana for my own moment. Sorry to my UVCM buddies who all
Kiss the cod.
I did watch it. It was great. UVCM, the compass is out now, so some of this stuff is now to be discussable. We're gonna weigh in as an intervener on the appeals for the Aboriginal title cases, specifically at UVCM, to bring that local government perspective of these impacts on title, we're not there to peg a position. We're there to support the decision makers at the court, understanding that local government municipality perspective. And so that will form itself as we go, and everything else is essentially in the compass. So I won't really dive into that, but I just wanna highlight it. It's obviously a very important piece of moving law in this new legally pluralistic world, and so we wanna make sure that that's being conveyed. And I also don't wanna add a bunch of fear that certainly a lot of confusion and misinformation and jostling for influence in this moment, but that case is still, there's lots of questions that come out of that case as we rectify. I think the big thing I really take away from it, I know others who've been around the table longer understand this, is that, in BC, so little of the land has gotten into a treaty state where we have those agreements, and that is simply work for our generation and probably a generation after us to kind of keep going and doing to bring better clarity and certainty, which will support our economy long term. I've already told you about the AK Bill, Gene. We're gonna debate the appropriateness of a late resolution for convention and trail around the community housing fund. I anticipate that will be successful, just having talked to the board members, so we're trying to have a regional response to that. And tonight's letter will be helpful, and so I appreciate that. Moving into what we're doing this week, so we have RDCK board.
Sorry, Keith, when are you guys meeting?
Friday at 9. Send something around. We're going into our RDCK board meeting. The big pieces there, and thank you for Chris for renewing my thoughts on this, but the organizational review, if you haven't had a chance to read the organizational review that the RDCK did in terms of how it has its governance, how it executes that operationally, the challenges between the strategic plan and implementation, there's a lot of good stuff there. At present, we had budgeted to do a phase 2 to take some of those broad scoped recommendations and get more detailed and get more finessed with those, get into individual departments and see what needed to happen there. The board has decided not to do that immediately, and I did speak to this, no, for real, because, and this is a good thing, because there's enough in the recommendations that leadership needs, quite frankly, a year or two to kind of work through those things. These are not ships who turn on a dime, and so we, as a principle, have put forward, let's revisit these phase 2 requirements and needs that this report recommends in the second year of the next term, and then see in the interim, there's enough of the big pieces that I think staff can chew through over the next couple of years and just see where they land before we then go and get another phase 2, which would probably recommend a phase 3, and just pace it out a little bit. And that's not to have a bias against action, that's just, I think, really recognizing that it's a big body of work and we don't need the phase 2 yet, I think. So I see you thinking something else.
The board heard that they need to get out of the
Yeah, I thought the
Kitchen?
recommendations were for the board, not for the staff. I read it as
Yeah.
the board.
Phase 1 was the low hanging fruit that really dealt with staff, that felt like the kid gloves, you know, to kind of get wet the palate, where they talked about the organizational challenges of administration.
Yeah.
But phase 2, and you know, they labeled or they identified this in phase 1 as well, right? It's like board is very much like acting like staff, almost trying to get too far into the details. And you know, it's causing all this churn and administrative time that is like not providing any value, just so that, you know, reports continue to come back. And that's really, I think, you know, phase 2 was digging into that more, and the role of committees and commissions and how, you know, the true value of those. Are they bringing value, or are they just causing more administrative churn that don't provide any value and you know, just cost money?
So I'll go through the top 3, and I think to your point, like, to both points, to put them together, like, this board has already recognized the need and is pursuing the consolidation, or at least the discussion of consolidation of the waste pieces. We've formed all rec and are more of those conversations that might be had between, especially the hockey conversation was like, let's just have this at all rec, so it's the same approach across the board. The reorganization of the entire community services piece, so you have that shared staffing structure across Creston, Cascard, Nelson. So I think there is recognition along that, it takes a time to walk down the path. But the 3 top ones were to implement a formal organization-wide prioritization. I think this is really a piece where the board individually and individual directors will have a lot of sway in the very large 135 action items that's on the report. And we need a better board to organization approach to what the priorities are, so that things can get worked through and we're not constantly moving things up and down the list as people saliently are exposed to pressures about that. We need the delegation piece, we've done some of that work around this table, but like finding more places where we can simply allow staff the latitude to make the choices they need to make in the execution of their duties, and not being so, and that's partially a culture thing and partially setting up policy and ways of leading and practice within that organization, so staff are empowered to take action. If it's delegation around different authorities, if it's delegation around different price points and raising thresholds, so if they're in execution of the budget and the broad principles and plans are in place, we're not coming to the board to say, are you okay if we move the fence line this way or that way, or we get the blue truck versus the red truck. And there are certainly lots of examples when you get into it, and sometimes we really care about the $5,000 things, and sometimes we don't even give a crap about the $150,000 things, and staff don't know when they should be or shouldn't be, so they ask for everything, and you get into the stalemate. And then the other piece there was strengthening the governance around clear decision-making processes, and that kind of just ties into the first one, I guess, in large strokes. So there's a lot more recommendations, but I think the big highlight takeaway is just we're gonna walk this through and then save that money to do that phase 2 in another year or 2, because I think staff will have incorporated this a little deeper by then. And the board, I will take away, and this is what I wrote for you guys after our conversation earlier, is just talking to the executive team, the vice president, vice chair, the chair, chair of rule admin and just say, how can we take those governance pieces for the board work specifically and weave that into what we've already committed for both the rest of this term and into the next one, so that there's that piece there. It's a culture of the board and directors, the directors themselves, of how things have done that leads us constantly to be part of the problem. And so how can we be going through more professional development and learnings as a board and as a commitment to be working as a body, not as a table of 21 different disparate pieces. And I think we are moving in that direction, so I think this is good for us to just put that out in the calendar every 3 or 4 months. Another workshop, another proper subject matter expert on it. I think I have one more note and then I'm done. The small operator piece on BC Hydro. Okay, so there is some conversation coming out of Sandon, and they asked for a letter, small utility up in the valley with 11 customers. But we wrote a really good letter, and if you haven't read it yet, I would advise us, the regional district, in support of their ask for better support. But I worked with Vice Chair McLaren Co. on this, in the sense of there's an issue with small operators below 40 megawatt production, and the province really, there's a couple examples of both Sandon, some First Nation utilities. We have our issue with wholesale rates during Frechette. Like, there needs to be some principle, or there could be some principle, some opportunity for a principle around how the province and BC Hydro specifically deals with small operators and some of the other values that aren't just purely fiscal. So it might be something we wanna put on our radar, look at that letter, see within our own operations if we want to be adding our voice to that, and petitioning maybe resolution to the province to say, hey, some utilities, some community-based utilities serve other benefits that aren't just driving electrical rates lower. And so what does that look like? If there was a program, would it be sponsored by community? Does it make things like Slowhead more viable? Does it make some of our stuff more viable? And I just think there's an opportunity there to kind of catch some of that wind. And then, yeah, we're gonna adopt the financial plan and budget. We have some concerns around the transit, which I will bring up on Thursday. If there's any others, I wanted to just put it in here so we can talk about it. That's my list.
Okay, my only question to you, and you don't have to answer, but I just need to ask the question while I remember it, is that when are we having the workshop on parks? If you could ask when you're at the meeting on Thursday, I think it's very important that we get that through, because there was the talk about, well, we're not gonna raise up the amount to what you asked for, but at the same time, we can always do a financial plan amendment once the year starts, and you know, I mean, this budget has to be approved, so I just wanna know when the date is, if you wouldn't mind, as the chair of that board, if you wouldn't mind staying on top of that, and that we have that meeting perhaps sooner than later.
Yeah, we don't wanna run in, my thoughts already, and I've been talking to Mark about it, is just I don't wanna run it into the fury of an election post, so we're hoping to have it early summer. So maybe by the June meeting. But I will keep carrying that. I could bring it up at budget, in the context of budget for a second, but I really think that's just.
I don't think you need to bring it up in the context of budget, that's why I'm just asking you the question, but
I'll get it.
you know, I was hoping that we were gonna have this, like, that staff meeting would occur before we get to the next meeting, so that we have the understanding of whatever, and then come a June actual meeting where the decision can be made that, well, yeah, we heard it now, and now we understand that, yeah, we probably should give the city of Nelson that additional $35,000 or whatever the difference in the ask is, and that we would be making that decision in June, not then waiting after June to have the meeting that then means that we have the discussion in October, right? So the idea would be to be a yay or a nay come the June meeting,
I don't think that's gonna happen.
based on having the workshop beforehand.
I'm
Take it away.
gonna push back on that. Knowing how the conversations went last time, in order to get the inflationary increase and the principle that came out of that, this particular group, I'm pushing back against it because I'm not sure pushing for it quickly makes it end in a place that we wanna stick the landing. And I think if you spread it over a meeting or two, people get a chance to acclimate, have a discussion, and not feel like they're forced to vote. I think June's too soon.
Well, it was Director Newell that asked for this meeting,
Yep.
and so, and he wasn't saying putting it off for a long time.
We're saying different things. I'm saying by all means, we should be starting to have the conversation. I'm just saying I'm not expecting a finalized decision within the context of just one other meeting cycle. So I'm thinking we're talking about it in June, we're setting the framework, that's typically how we solicit that feedback, then we get something later at a future meeting, and we say, is this what's happening, and then by a third meeting, we're saying yea or nay.
Are you talking about 3 workshops? I mean, there was
No,
this,
not 3 workshops, just,
Director Newell asked for a workshop to
Mhm.
have a better understanding
I know, yeah.
of how the numbers are. I don't see that taking a long time. That's a 2-hour meeting or a morning at the most. And I think then that moves that discussion then off the table, so parks can have meetings through the rest of the course of the year, however things may fall. But that's always gonna be an albatross that's there in any discussion on a go forward on a parks meeting if we can't get something off of the parks meeting.
Yeah, no, I
Table.
agree with you that a workshop on what the principles could be and that generative space, both from a history perspective and what we see as our principles and values out of that, can happen before midsummer. I don't agree that a decision-making point on what happens with our actual financial assets that are impacted by that discussion will be ready by that date. I'm not saying we do the workshop and go into.
I think the workshop has to be before the workshop needs to be between now and when the next parks meeting is.
Okay, I hear you. I'll ask staff. Anything else?
Oh, that's my only
No.
question to you, because you're the chair.
I guess it's coming to the board, but we have not been paid for our fire service for
Yes.
2025 yet.
No, I think that's fine. Not fine that we haven't been paid. I think this has been, it has been, we were just talking about it, I'm trying to remember which meeting we were at, where we were talking about it in the last couple weeks, and there wasn't a lot of pushback at the time of that discussion.
'Cause we provided
At the
service
draft,
under-
it was at the draft budget meeting, not 10 days ago.
I mean, they did get an invoice from us for 2025, which they seem to not want to pay. And the difference of what they're not paying, they're claiming to roll into surplus for 2026. And the only problem with that is it sounds all really good and fine, but that surplus that they roll in having not paid their 2025 bill only benefits the members that live in the regional district. There is no benefit to that surplus to us as the city of Nelson providing fire. So it's a bit problematic. You don't pay the bill. The part that you didn't pay, you roll in as surplus, and that surplus only goes to Area E. So they get lower taxes next year, while the city of Nelson continues to pay for the fire service as it
So-
falls.
Help me understand and re-clarify this. So we issued them an invoice in 2025 or for 2025 after, like when did this invoice drop the fire?
Yeah, normally we have an agreement and they pay it.
Yep.
This discussion on agreement has been going on for quite a while.
Yep.
I got to the point where, and it was in the fall of 2025,
Yep.
I just sent an invoice thinking that might get things going. They haven't paid that yet. So I think what's on the agenda is to partially pay that amount, some base level amount that they've determined is the base level,
The current agreement
with
structure?
further conversations to be had, so.
Okay,
But they taxed for the amount that we asked for is the problem. And because they're not gonna pay the bill in full, they've got that tax money. What are they doing with that tax money? They're gonna roll it into surplus. It benefits only Area E. And that's a bit of my problem. It's not like they're rolling it into surplus and it's gonna benefit Nelson and E. It just benefits those taxpayers.
If they under
It's not surplus really, it's
Well, if they
like what they owe
under-
us.
If they under requisition in 26, then they can't pay us
Yeah, I
for
agree
those
with
2 years.
you. Yeah, 'cause I
The
know
amount- yeah.
it was post us adopting the fire master plan and the
Yeah.
increased levels of service that go along with that.
Yeah, and the amount they budgeted for in 2025 was the amount that I thought we had an agreement on, was the amount I invoiced them for, but it's not the amount they're paying.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Payne?
Do we have any recourse? What is our recourse when someone doesn't pay a bill?
Well, not give them service, I
There
guess.
you
I don't
go.
think they'd be too happy about the fact that, I mean, I don't know how you cut off fire service. There's probably some moral thing there that we would have done wrong to do that. I mean, it's,
We'll send it to a collection agency.
Okay, we got two, anybody else?
Okay, well, I'll
Should we
talk,
go
no,
pick
I'll
at the
talk to staff.
office?
What has staff said to you about that particular, anything?
They said, and I think it's in the package, is that here's a base amount. They're still negotiating with the city of Nelson regarding how capital will be funded.
Mm.
So they're not paying any of that portion. The part that I had issue with also was the wording in that, when you look at it, says something about the city of Nelson agreed that, you know, I'm probably not using the correct words, but it sort of alluded to the fact that we talked about it in advance, that this was a base amount that they could pay. I just read it in there, so we didn't discuss any payment of a base amount. So I had an issue with that, and I just don't want there to be confusion thinking that's the amount and that it's done. There's still more to be paid for 2025.
But you and Yev haven't had a heart to heart on this?
yeah, they
particular
have.
issue?
And
we've had
so
a
I
lot
think
of-
we're gonna move it up the food chain. I think we'll
Yeah.
have it move up to the
Yeah.
CAO.
I'm sure it was Yev who brought it up, not.
Yeah.
It's been in the last 10 days I've heard Yev say that we have to work on this.
Yes.
Just write a check.
Just write a check. It makes
Sure,
life a lot
we've
easier.
held off checks on too. I get it. It sounds like there's,
I would bring that check.
As long as that money is available to pay that. Right, they haven't under requisitioned in 26.
They've kept it as prior year surplus unallocated funds for 2026, then it's not the end of the world. Cause then, I mean, they should pay us, cause we don't wanna fall into another situation where we are with parks, where there's this arbitrary, well, we fund about 75 to 85% of the total cost that, you know, they plucked out of the air. So, you know, I think we want to avoid getting into that situation, but as long as, to the city manager's point, they didn't use the prior year surplus from 2025 to fund the budget for 26.
Makes sense.
You know, as long as they kept that prior year surplus as unallocated funds in 2026, then at least
Yeah.
conversations
Like
could
a
be
But
had.
knowing the way they,
Surplus.
but knowing the way they push, they probably made it allocated funds. So I mean, it's problematic. It's not it's Councillor Page, it's not gonna break the city of Nelson, but we're always the ones that are paying our bills on time. And it's the continued consistency of this, well, we think this is what we'd like to pay. I mean, I don't go anywhere. I don't think any of us go anywhere and kind of go, oh, the menu said the steak was $35. Well, you know, it was okay, but I don't think it was silver grade. I think it was just AA, so I'm gonna pay you 30. And this is the fire service.
I challenge the wisdom of assigning so much intent behind the perception, right? I think this is a conversation, staff to staff is always best to understand some of this piece. I
Yeah.
know
Well, and it's gonna
you're
be,
trying to work out
it's
a
been
principle,
staff to
but-
staff, and so
Yeah.
now it will move
I
up.
think it wasn't.
It's going to, no, it has been. He's had many discussions with Yev. It's going to move up and probably, maybe it might have to be Kevin to Stewart or Chris to Stewart, because they seem to be stuck. So we need to unstuck the wheel.
Motion to go past 10 o'clock?
It's 11, I think.
What's 11?
Oh, we're
It's 11, good. So Councillor
Nice
Page is
try.
finished.
Those things.
So Councillor Payne, you get a quick,
Second that motion.
yeah.
And I'll vote no.
And then you vote against it. And so, and you know what, the in-camera thing isn't gonna take us that long, so don't worry. So Councillor Page,
Or Payne?
Pain.
Payne, sorry.
I was also curious about the Nelson budget thing at the RD, but we can get that later. I was unable to attend unfortunately because I was at the Local Government Leadership Academy Conference down in Richmond last week. From Wednesday the 11th, I guess, to the 13th. I'd actually been there the year before because I was already down in Vancouver and I decided to go. I found it quite worthwhile, so I went back again. I'm not sure that I will do that, but one of the things that I did bring up while I was there is the cost to small rural communities of getting to conferences in the Lower Mainland. And they are doing a bit of a review of their curriculum, which sounds like they're actually gonna add a Zoom component to that particular conference, because there are a lot of really great learning opportunities built into that. I would certainly miss the networking. I met mayors from similar sized communities to ours, and we were able to share a lot of information of how they're doing things. One of my main topics of conversation was the Community Housing Fund, and there were gnashing of teeth everywhere. But I wanted to mention the amazing work that the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District is doing around truth and reconciliation and the plans that they've come up with, working with the nations in their area. But I think the best part, the most interesting sort of encapsulation of what our role is and how we fulfill it in such different ways was when 5 director, 2 councillors, a mayor and a chair used this opening called "It Seemed Like a Good Idea at the Time," and had 6 minutes with slides to talk about different initiatives within their community that they'd engaged with. And it was just really fascinating to see the similarities and the differences to some of the challenges that we have seen here in Nelson and how that has moved forward. As I say, I think it's incredibly worthwhile to go to the conference. It's half a day on Wednesday, full day on Thursday, and half a day on Friday. But to come the distance that we need to come makes it really challenging. The resources from many of these conferences are available online, so you can actually go in and watch some of those things. So I would commend you to take a look at that. Excellent information. Councillor Page was there as well. And I obviously, over the last 3 meetings that we haven't reported, have been out to a number of different meetings. But the main thing is that you've seen the article about deaths in our region from substance use, and the drug supply is still incredibly toxic and changing all the time. So it's challenging for the individuals who use the substances, but it is just very, very painful to watch how the frontline workers are dealing with these situations where they don't know how to respond and what to expect because the drugs are changing and the results of that are different. So we need work there, but still putting heart and soul on the line every single day. And that was mainly it. Next week. Oh, this week. It's still only Tuesday. How great is that?
Okay, so moving on then. I will put in a written report. I've been to a few things that a few other people have been to, and just want to recognize that council is out and about, and I do recognize the continued volunteerism of our council for the community. So going on to late items, we have one that's in camera, so if I could have a motion to move in camera, moved by Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Tate. All those in favor of moving into camera based on 91I, the Local Government Act. Okay.
All right,